personal journey a little bit. How did you realize that your life was out of balance with work and family? And what steps did you take to get the balance back?
Things were a little wild for us for quite a while, Meg, especially when our first son was born. Originally, when I came out of college, I had a master's in education. I was teaching U.S. history and economics. I was coaching youth sports. That's what I thought I was going to do for a long time. And right as I was getting out of college, my father ended up passing. It was a hereditary thing that happened, or not hereditary. It has happened through our lineage, where adult males just haven't lived very long. They haven't been very healthy. He was close to 400 pounds. He was a pack-a-day smoker, drank a lot of Pepsi, ate a lot of Spam, rough around the edges. Gentleman, he had congenital heart failure, sleep apnea. He falls asleep when he's driving and gets in a car accident and passes when I was about 20. I have three brothers. I have younger brothers still in high school at the time. My father's father passed when he was in high school. And here I am with three brothers. Eventually I have three sons. I currently have three sons. And even though I was going down this great path as an educator, it's very laid out. I'm going to teach for this many years, then I can retire or I can go into administration. I thought, I want to rewrite this kind of family legacy where it was very unhealthy. So I studied and became a physical trainer, and I decided to open a little gym in my basement, and it takes off. So I'm teaching high school from 7:40 was the beginning of the contract day until 2:50, and then training adults from 3 until 7 p.m., and then working out myself and coming home at like 8:30. Throw our first child in the mix, and now I'm going from, we started doing morning classes. I'm training people 6 to 7, going to school, coming home. It's about a 14-hour day, and things were tremendously out of balance. And still, I had a naive perspective of what success looked like for our family, which initially was like, all right, I need to make money. I want to just drive forward. I'm going to make as much money as possible. I'm going to help as many people as possible in terms of their health and wellness. But that's going to be at the sake of my own health and wellness. And that went on for a few years, and eventually the company grew too much to be able to go back to teaching after 8 years. So I decided to go all in on the fitness studios, and we open up more. Soon we have 800 or so personal training clients. The company's growing.
Wow.
And then, it was going great. Like, we built great connection. We worked a lot with our community. And it seemed like every time we had a child, we opened another facility. We moved out of the basement when my son Logan was born. We went ahead and opened a second facility when our middle child was born. And when our last child was born, we opened one out of the location, and we added another one. And things were wild, and that is what we thought our new path was going to be. So we went from the educator path to the fitness business owner path. And we had a beautiful little farmhouse. We had 6 acres, 2 ponds, a little fountain, kids going out and swimming, plenty of area for them to play in. And then when 2020 happened, our older son specifically wasn't going to be a good online learner. The middle child was doing fine with online education, but the older one just wasn't a classic classroom learner. And I had given so much to the community in terms of the business and everything. I thought, things are way out of balance. I need to bring things back in alignment, put all that effort that I focused and all the lessons I've learned over the 15 years of running a company into my family life. I need to put that same focus that I did on driving our financial success with driving our family relationships and put things back in balance. And along with my wife, we would take these walks, and we would just walk for 45 minutes and talk, walk and talk. And we came up with strategies like, hey, what do you do for your company in terms of setting core values? Here's what I teach the companies. Here's how we do business meetings. Why don't we do family meetings? And we start putting it all together. And we decide to look at a map and say, hey, we've established our core values now. We've established where we want our family to go. Where do we want to live? And we just picked a spot on a map. We looked at the likelihood of our kids to go through the school and still stay in the area, where are the economic opportunities, things like that. What's the weather? What's the housing market? All that stuff. Mm-hmm. We flew out, we bought a house, we moved out and moved to a city where we knew no one and started all over.
Mm. So backing up, before COVID, what was your relationship like when you were crazy busy with your kids and your wife? It doesn't sound like you had much time together. So what was it like in the home when you came home in the evening?
Very blessed. Mel and I have had a great relationship. We've known each other since high school. My wife, Mel, super supportive, and she would put her head down and kind of run the household. And, her prayer for us one day was like, all right, well, so one day we'll have time together. Like one day this will happen. And then it just seemed like one day would never happen after a couple of years. And we still had a great relationship, and we still would spend time with the kids, take them to sports practice. I'd get someone to cover sessions, but it was always very hectic. And the big stress was the time.
Yep. So you both felt stress. Did your kids feel the stress?
I believe so. They would, they were integrated into some things with the business. Like if I were to open a new facility, they'd come and they would practice their public speaking, and they would give speeches at like 5 and 6 to these hundreds of people that would come. And they felt empowered through that, but they also felt the stress of like, this thing is what Dad's really busy with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, from there, you launched the Strong Family Project, and it evolved into addressing key topics like building a strong bond with your kids, nurturing their talents, and fostering a loving environment. What prompted you to start the Strong Family Project? Was it something that just sort of naturally flowed out of your experience, or was it an epiphany? How did it come about?
A little bit kicking and screaming, honestly. So we
Really?
figured, yes, we figured, who are we to teach about parenting? We want, like, we're in the midst of it too. And we would have friends come over and visit, like, oh, whatever you're doing, it seems to be really work. Can you show me how you set core values? Can you show this? You should really do a podcast. Like, no, like my wife in particular has been very behind the scenes, helping with the business and everything. Wasn't really a front-facing speaker. She was nervous about it. Of course, she's done great. And she's been featured on a lot of podcasts now too. But it was originally like, okay, well, first of all, we don't know it all. However, we do know that what we focus on is what we can learn more about. And so we launched the project to teach kind of what we're doing, but also to learn from other parents and other experts like you that we get to speak to.
In the Strong Family Project, it's pretty clear what you do. And I would encourage our listeners to go to your website, because what you do is lay out a very clear path for parents. So it's not a philosophical thing. It's really, go through these steps. So can you talk to us about the steps that you go through, where parents begin and where they end, and what they can expect to gain from going through the Strong Family Project?
Yeah, I'll answer those in reverse if possible. Mm-hmm. So what they can gain is some peace of mind that they have a system to run their household. I think that's what we're missing. We do it like, hey, we want to have a good family. There's so many well-intentioned people that want to put the effort into it, but they're just not quite sure how. It's like playing a sport. I played some sports growing up and in college, and there's like a game plan. Here's what we do, and here's how the game's played. And then within the game, there can be a lot of differences. But parenting is just kind of, all right, well, we want to do good in general. Well, how do we do good? And so we came up with a system of activities that each household can personalize to themselves. So we don't want to tell people what to believe. We just want to help them with a structure of how to set up their family life. And for us, it usually starts back, to answer your first question, we start with the core values. What does your family stand for? Our family's core values could be a lot different than somebody else's, but we walk people through a process to determine what theirs are. We teach them how to set goals as a family. We teach them morning routines, options to set the morning routine. We teach family meal structure on how we have conversations and what the kids are responsible for bringing to the table. We do a weekly family meeting, which we just give the structure for, an evening debrief, and then a focus on relationships in the home and what to keep an eye out for. Within that structure, a lot of different families who believe different things can do a lot of different things. But if you have something like, for example, the family meeting, and an issue comes up during the week, let's choose tech time. It's always a big thing, like how much screen time can my kids have? Well, we don't solve it in the moment. We say, all right, table it, write it down. We'll discuss it this Saturday at dinner when we have our family meeting. And then when we remove the emotion from that situation of, well, I want this thing in my hand, to discussing it at a family meeting, we have better, more full discussions. We come up with a solution. We try it for a week, and then we can keep going. So it provides a little peace of mind, a little cadence to our family life.
Mm-hmm. It sounds lovely and wonderful. And I'm picturing your kids going, okay, Dad, here's the family meeting. So let's talk about this. What kind of pushback do you get from parents? I'm hearing parents say, yeah, it's nice for you to have dinners together, but I can't do that. Or, yeah, it's nice to think about a family meeting, but my kids would never do that. So, what kind of problems have parents who go through your program encountered, and how do you help them with those problems?
Great question, because of course there's speed bumps along the way. It isn't a super, like, it's not made to, family life isn't made to be like boring and robotic. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be dynamic. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be opportunities. So the first part is having that mindset that it is going to take what we call constant, gentle pressure in order to get the kids to see the value of these things. It probably won't go right the very first time. Probably be some speed bumps in the family meeting or setting your core values or whatever it is. But it's like, all right, well, we're just going to consistently try it each week. We're going to try it next week. And then you get the kids' feedback, even they get to participate in the family organization, and you slowly nudge it forward. It is not a magic wand. I have yet to come across a magic wand in parenting. But the key to this is to allow you to have a low heart rate. When a problem comes up, you have ways and means to solve it together. And so when you get that pushback, like, oh, must be nice for you to be able to do this thing. I mean, it wasn't always nice. Now it is, because we stuck with it, and now it works great. Kids do their morning routine. They do what they call their contributions, which are chores to the house. They just get it done because they know it's our standard. We set the standard. We hold the standard. It's just like constant, gentle pressure of reminding them, hey, this is the thing we agreed to do. We have to do it. It's not yelling. It's not an authority play of me pushing, like, I'm the father, you listen to me. It's like, hey, this is what we agreed on. Are you someone who you as a character want to do what you said you were going to do? And then, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I understand. And they'll start doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's just setting the standard, holding the standard, and doing it with a low heart rate. Just speak like it's you're having a normal conversation with somebody.
Even though they're not wanting to do what you want them to do, or saying, no, Dad, I'm not going to do that. Because one of the issues I find parents really struggle with is kids not wanting to do what they want, and giving them a hard time and talking back, and particularly as they hit the teen years. So how would you recommend a family deal with a 14 or 15-year-old who just said, that's all great for you, but I'm not going to participate this in anymore. I'm too old. I have a life I want to live. So how would you talk to that 14 or 15-year-old to get them back into your family plan?
So as our kids get closer to the teen years, and we have worked with some families that have this, is the mantra of low heart rate wins conversation is constantly repeated in the parent's mind, and what the teen wants, and what is not a lot different than what an infant wants, where they want to act out, get what they want, and they want to move away. Now, the teens will vocalize that in a different way, but what they don't want is to sit down and calmly speak about something, because then it has to deal with more with a rational approach. So when the kids get a little lippy, or they get a little sassy about something, say, all right, why don't we sit down and have a conversation about it? And they're like, oh, never mind, I'm just going to do it. Like, they know that we're going to sit down and talk about it. They're not allowed to be all stomp. They're not allowed to stomp their feet. If they get high-pitched noise, I'm like, I can't hear your voice when it does that. Can you speak in a normal voice for me? And they roll their eyes, and they're like, okay. And now we have a conversation, and sorry I was acting like that. Like, I understand that, I'm part of the family. I'm going to contribute in this way, and then I get to do what I want to do too.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're pretty in tune with your kids. You're reading them. You're listening to them. You're watching their moods. Because I think that's really important, particularly as you have your family meetings. It sounds like you're asking them questions and you're honoring their responses. Is that true?
That's 100% true, Meg. That's very well worded. We don't want the first team or high performance organization that our kids are part of, like in the workplace. We want it at the family table or in the household, where like we'll set a standard at a family meeting, like, hey, we're worried that if we give you too much tech time, your face is going to be buried and you're not going to have relationships with your brothers. How can we solve this? And then we let them come up with a solution. They're like, well, how about we do 15 minutes? Okay, cool. How do we monitor that? Let's set timers. Okay. How do we know how many we use? Let's get a little dashboard to mark it down and say, all right, well, what we think is fair coming from the kids, like let's get 3 15-minute times for our computer, and you're going to monitor it how, and they tell us how, and you're going to track it how, they tell us, okay, great, that sounds like an awesome answer, thank you for coming up with that, let's try that for this week. And then we honor what they chose.
You know, the real secret to I have found to getting kids to do what you really want them to do is let them come up to the conclusion that that's what they need to do. And a lot of times you can do it just by asking them questions like, well, why do you think you want to be on social media so much? And what do you get from it? And how does it make you feel? And then they kind of come up to the conclusion with, gee whiz, maybe it doesn't. How old are your kids now?
14, 12, and 5.
Okay. How do you handle, and they're all boys?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So how do you handle computers, screens, and video games with your boys? Because I imagine your older boys want to play video games just like their friends. So how do you handle that?
So the example I just gave is the conversation we had where they got to choose their time periods. We don't, right now we're not, we don't put our foot down hard on a lot, but we're not looking for you to do online communication games at 12 or 14 where you have the headphone and people can talk to you and people can send you pictures. Like, we're not down with that. Mm-hmm. So they chose their 3 15 minutes. They get a wild card for educational, they call it. Like if our son wants to learn new soccer tricks, or we have one son that's huge into 3D printing, like they can have a 15-minute time slot to learn something, and they share it at dinner as a bonus. And so they'll play like some little racing games together. That's their way to do it. But we just have set the standard, and yeah, we get some pushback. Oh, I want a phone. I want to be able to communicate. I want to be able to, like, we're just not ready for it yet. Let's just enjoy the time that we have.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of boys want to play with their friends online in video games, and they feel a lot of pressure from their friends to do what they do, to play certain games that are violent, I think are very inappropriate for anybody, really. Has that ever come up with you? And if so, what do you do with that, where they feel pressure from their peers?
So yes, it has come up in terms of they want to participate in activities with their friends. I'm very careful how I word that. And so yes, their friends may view that as, let's sit down and play a video game. However, we view it as, we'll go pick up your friends and bring them over. Mm-hmm. Like, come on over. They can come play. Like, well, online, like, you're not really playing with a person. You're playing with a screen. They might be, behind it or whatever. And so we encourage in-person play, social interactions, and we have found that since we have set up our family dynamic using the strong family path or set of core values, the other kids are largely influenced by ours. They come over like, oh, wow, like, let's go for a bike ride. And they engage in those activities that we might have loved as kids, that we just say, oh, kids these days don't do that. Well, it's just that they haven't been provided the opportunity to do it. They very well could do it. Mm-hmm. And so we don't, that's one of the things. We're not like, what value, and we ask them, what value is it that you shoot someone and they blow up in this video game? Like, how about you have a kid over and you create something and go play outside? Yeah. And so they might not love that answer, but that's the line that we hold with them. Yeah. Part of the reason of creating core values is that your kids will establish values, whether you do it in the household or they get it from their friends, or they get it from their teachers, they get it from their coaches, or they get it from social media, or they get it from television. Some might be good, some might be terrible. I found if you set your own family values, it's almost attractive to their friends to be like, oh, wow, you do this thing? Like my son Henry, he sets we have a commitment. People can choose what their weekly commitment is. My wife's like, I'm going to read for 15 minutes. Our son, who's 5, is like, I'm gonna do 10 push-ups every day. That's his daily commitment.
It's so
Son,
cute. Yeah.
he's really, ironically or not ironically, we've had this path set up, and we see such a difference between him and our 14-year-old. I joke with, I'm like, Logan, like, we were figuring it out with you. Like, Everett, we've got it figured out now better. And fortunately, we've enlisted our 14-year-old to help along the process because he hasn't had it as much. But our middle one is, he likes to go to support his classmates at basketball games after school, whether it's the girls' games or whatever else. Right now it's the girls' basketball season, so he'll stay after school and watch the game. But his commitment is to run 5 hills because he wants to get good at soccer. So he goes out between the quarters and runs a hill and goes back in. And now he has 3 or 4 friends that go out, they run the hill with him, and they go back in because he had led that now he's attracting people to more of that lifestyle versus them attracting him to, like, all right, let's just go play video games.
Isn't it cool? Because kids are like that. There's so much, they're so much more open to change and to doing fun things than we think they are. You know, they may say, no, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. But the truth of the matter is, if you said, no, let's go do something else, they really love doing healthy things. Now, in your Strong Family Project, you teach families 7 pillars. What are the 7 pillars that you go through?
Yep. The very first one is the core values, which usually, it depends how old your kids are. They can be involved in setting them, or it could be you and your significant other coming up with your core values. But basically, you take a little time, you brainstorm everything that you think is a value for your family, and then you play a game called Kill, Keep, or Combine. Like, you look at the list, like, oh, it's a value that it's not really a core value. I'm going to cross this off. Or I'm going to keep this one. It's really important. Or my wife might have, one of ours is gratitude. We want to show daily gratitude for the life we get to live. If she wrote thankfulness and I wrote gratitude, like, all right, let's just combine these to one. And then you get down to a list of 5 or 6 values. And so that's what we did originally. Then we have our goal setting system, which I shared a little bit with a daily commitment. It doesn't have to be a physical activity. I come from the fitness field, so usually it is in our family. But I gave the example, my wife's like, I'm going to read 15 minutes. Whatever you want to work on for that week, it's important to learn how to set goals and to keep daily habits. That's a lifelong skill we want to teach our kids now. The morning routine, we don't want kids waking up, coming upstairs in their PJs, rolling their eyes. Oh, like, I got to start another day. Like, we're not going to play that game. Here's the things we need to get done. Every day they wake up, they do 5 minutes of exercise. It's not to get them fit, but it's to get their energy up, to know that they start the day with purpose. And they all have some sort of physical, just, hey, we want to live longer and healthier lives. 5 minutes of exercise. They come up, there's two contributions or chores. One unstacks the dishwasher, one preps the lunches. So they come up, they have to complete all their chores if they want to use one of their 15-minute tech times in the morning. So they knock it all out, fill the ice cube tray, because our ice cube maker on their fridge is always broken. So one's got to break the trays and put them up there. Yeah. And they got to knock it out. It's just the morning routine to start the day off right. And it could look different in a lot of families, but that's ours. Family mealtime. We have decided to be super flexible on the time of the meal. It's more important that we have a gathering together. So our dinner, quote unquote dinner, could be between 3:30 and 6:30. Like, we try to get it around 5 or 6. But it's more important for us to be at the table together once during the day, because this never happened during the 8 years or so when I was running a company and teaching at the same time. And we found that, like, sitting down, giving the kids a time to talk, and we go around, share something we're thankful for from the day. At our family meals, our 5-year-olds gets to choose who. So he walks around the table and, like, gives you a high five. It's your turn to share something for the day. So he gets to participate as well. Family meetings, once a week, we sit down. We share how we embodied one of the family core values during the week. Then we do discussion topics. Anything as a household that we need to talk about, like tech time was an example. Then we do a tough truth out of that family meeting, which is, hey, is there anything that needs to be said that's a little uncomfortable? I've received tough truths from the kids. Middle son said, hey, Dad, I saw you check your phone during dinner time. We're not supposed to be doing that, and I just want to let you know. And instead of me, and this goes back to your question of, like, how do you get kids to listen? Well, you have to model listening, because he was right. And I had to eat that one. I said, yeah, you're right. Give me a week to work on it and let me know how we do it the next one. I didn't say, oh, it's work. Like, this is important. Like, it was, but he doesn't need to know that because that's just an excuse. And so we do that, and then we go around, we share something about each person that went well during the week. Then we have our evening debrief, which my wife runs as a she used to work a lot with children as a social worker. And she would have these sessions with the kids, and she would call them doorknob conversations, which perhaps you're familiar with. You go through this hour session, you go and hit the doorknob, session's over, and then that one thing comes up that you wish you had the whole session to talk about. And like, oh, now we're getting to the serious stuff. Yeah. And so it's when they're most comfortable. So the evening debrief happens when the kids are in bed and they're comfortable, they're in their own environments. Sometimes they bring up something from the day, and Mel calls it the evening debrief so she can purposefully focus on just being present. Like, she wants to get to bed. She knows this is important. They may never bring this thing up again. So she's going to focus on discussing it with them then. And then our last one is relationships in the home. There's a lot more relationships in the home than we usually think about. So it's between me and my wife. We tell our kids, like, we don't exist to serve you. We exist to help guide you through life. You're an outcome of the love that we have as a couple. And so we have our relationship. We have my relationship to each child, Mel's relationship to each child to each child. And any of those are off, it can screw up the whole dynamic. Like if the older two are getting grumpy or nitpicky about something, like maybe they need to spend some time apart. Maybe they need to spend some time together, but in a different environment. And so we get to identify like which relationship is going great, which one might need a little more attention. Like during the holiday break, kids are home all the time. Mel and I couldn't spend as much time together on our daily walks as we used to. And we're like, something feels off. And we haven't spent this relationship time together on our daily walk. So let's make a focus as soon as the kids are back to school. Mm-hmm. And so we break it down like that.
What do you say to divorced couples? I can see how this works well with families where the mother and father have a strong relationship. But how do you coach parents who are divorced and don't have similar values? Or can you not? Is that impossible?
You absolutely can. That's a good question. And I'm glad you brought it up because I have a number of parents that, specifically fathers that I tend to work with, that as a divorce, when they get the child, they're not quite sure how to act. Like, should we do the same household stuff? Mm-hmm. What might happen at this person's house might not be allowed at this person's house. And there's all this ambiguity and the child gets very confused. Yeah. So this is a great way to structure it and provide them, when you're here, here's exactly the 7 steps we follow. There's no ambiguity. There's no opportunity for the child to say, but at the other person's house, this is what I do. Okay, that's understandable. Here's exactly the clear steps that we follow here. Mm-hmm. And so it helps provide a little peace of mind and a little clarity to the child on what to expect when they're at someone's house, because it's very much more organized.
So you really need divorced couples to come together and be on the same page, right? Your core values and your structure is going to work similar to mine, because I think if they're not on the same page, this just isn't going to work, it would seem to me.
So in a perfect world, which we know we don't live in, that would be great. Like if they're on the same page with core values and all these steps. Now, if they are on the same page with all these steps, they know there's extenuating circumstances, but they're probably going to be still together because they believe in all the same things. So it's not typically the case. Typically the case is, and at least this is the couples that I've worked with, like one person that, like, this person runs their household this way, I'm going to run it this way. This person says this about this person when they're over there, and it puts the child in between. And so in an ideal world, they're the same core values. However, it doesn't have to be. It could be the core values of the father and daughter, father and son, whomever is in that household. Like, let's get together and let's set up these values. Mm-hmm. And that child can still have the same values. Like ours include gratitude, personal development. Like, these are positive values that they can embody at anybody's house. Just to get to celebrate them a little bit more with a parent who wants to guide them a little more. Now, if I was in that situation, I do recommend sharing them. Like, hey, here's what we're working on here. Now, completely cool if they're not together. Completely cool if you don't want to emphasize these things. But when he or she's here, these are the kind of the things that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like a lot of negotiation, and good parents who really love their kids are going to come together and do that. We only have a couple minutes left, but I would like to know from you personally, what are the three biggest changes you saw take place in your kids from the time that your life was crazy and out of control until you got this program going?
That's a very good question, Meg. The first one is definitely personal accountability, because I had to own a lot of those shortcomings that I had where I was busy, or my example of using the cell phone at the table, or your example of like listening to the child and hearing them out to help them decide on an action or outcome. They've taken much more accountability. Life hasn't been happening to them as much, as it's not so hectic. Now they get to participate, and now they get to influence it, and they get to see their own personal value in the outcomes. And that's been tremendous from our 5-year-old right on up, that he gets to decide that he's in charge of his own outcomes. He's going to accept responsibility. He does his reading. He gets his Dr. Seuss book. Hey, can you come read this to me? He does his push-ups. Like, he wants to be a part of this organization in a big way. So that's number one. Number two is an attractiveness to development throughout life. When I was a kid, I was like, I just kind of in the moment, and that's very good. You should be in the moment a lot of times, but in the big picture, where are some of these things leading us? What does reading do for us? What does this physical activity do for us? What do our core values do for us? What do I want to become, and how can I work on things now? How can I be a leader now? How can I show empathy now? And so they think outside themselves in more of a future perspective, which honestly I never did as a kid. I just wanted to all right, well, maybe I made the all-star team. That's as future oriented as I ever was. And the last thing is that they get to meaningfully participate and influence other people's lives. And I think as a child, we didn't always think that way. We just thought parents were parents and knew everything, and kids are kids. But throughout the family meeting process, they get to influence a lot that we do. And it has to have some reason behind it. It's not all reactive, but instead they get to participate in a high-functioning organization, and it gives them a lot of confidence and a lot of value in what they can bring to the table from 5 years old on up.
I love it. I love it when you said life isn't just happening to them. They're really engaging, and they're growing, and they're participating. And I think the idea that they are part of a structure, they're part of an ecosystem that works together and it works well, has a profound effect on their self-esteem and their perspective of life and other people and how they respect it. So I just love that. My guest has been Joe Hashey. He formed the Strong Family Project with his wife, and I strongly encourage everybody to go to their website. They also have a podcast, and they have so much to teach families of all sorts on how to strengthen their families, how to teach them core values, and really how to understand and know their kids better. So Joe, thanks so much for joining me today.
Meg, a big fan of your podcast, listened to many episodes, honored to be on it. Thank you so much for having me.
Many professionals invest in an executive coach for personal development and a trainer for physical fitness. Now you can hire me, a best-selling author and expert coach, to help you raise great kids. I've over 35 years practicing pediatrics and an extensive experience decoding what your kids need and think about you. I've helped countless parents just like you. You can talk directly with me through private or group coaching. I'll listen and provide a customized plan to help you be the best dad you can be. Sign up now through the link in the episode notes. Your kids are counting on you. Let's make your family's future brighter together.